All right, welcome back. This is another If I Were Your Mentor, and we're going to look at Amie Balesky again, reading number 356 that she has uploaded to her YouTube personally. Jen and Deb says it happened about 6 months ago. Again, to be very clear, my intent with these videos is discernment and mediumship. This is to teach what is a good reading, what to expect in a good reading. One of the reasons I'm qualified to do this is because I have been a grieving person. And all of us who have grieved, we're willing to pay a certain amount of money at one point to someone who may or may not have been really giving you an actual reading. The video snippets that I use are from the Fair Use Act. I am not saying who's fake. I'm not saying who's real. I'm saying this is what you should look for in a reading in order to maximize your time. All right, I'm not going to use a lot of the video. You can go to her page. It's reading 356 if she leaves it up, Jen and Deb. It was a 31.11 minute reading, and once again she's running behind, so you'll notice that there's a really big pattern of her running behind. To me, that's just disrespectful. If you're consistently, now everybody's going to run behind now and then, but if you're consistently, like every video I watch, she's apologizing for being late. I've talked to some of her previous students and she's consistently late. For the most part, that's a lack of respect.
Okay, well, that's good. So he's trying to be politically correct. Tell me why. He likes your aunt mom. I'm gonna call her mom.
Oh,
in a good way, just like very, very nice. Why?
yeah, they both are very nice.
They are. He's saying that are y'all not able? Do y'all live like 2 hours away from each other? How far away do you live?
About 45.
But the database excuse is that she's from Texas and these people are from Alaska. Texas and Alaska are not that different. Again, very performative. You'll hear me say this a lot for people who are very performative. In fact, it's made me look at the way that I read because I wonder sometimes if I look a little too performative. So these are really good ways. If you want to critique other people, it's a really good way to kind of check yourself almost.
Well, okay. Okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. He goes like this. He says, oh, you don't look too far away, but it's not like they can just go and see each other. And so for me, I'm thinking I'm in Texas. So I'm like, well, my mom, I live in North Houston. She lived in South. That's 2 hours away. So I'm going to say something like that. And he says they need to get together and like get a pedicure, or they need to get together and like do something, you know, relaxing or enjoyable or whatever this is. For me and my husband go get pedicures every 2 weeks. So like or 3 weeks.
All right, so if I'm your mentor, I'm going to tell you, please don't talk about yourself during a reading. Nobody cares. Nobody cares when you go to get a pedicure. Nobody cares if your husband gets a pedicure. You are taking time that people have paid you for, and you're filling it with filler of stories about yourself. And in fact, in this 31-minute reading, there is a very large portion of that is just stories about her. She's talking about herself.
So I don't know every single thing, but he showed me a couple of things like, I don't think you have infusions.
I do.
Just goes with,
I do.
up. Really?
Always, every Tuesday, 3 of them.
Oh
So
my
that's
God.
amazing. You hit on that.
Does he hit on that? I'm just dumb enough to like, zone out.
I wasn't doing them when he was alive, which is so
Really?
ironic.
All right, so we need to give credit where credit is due, right? Except these two people came in basically talking about having health problems. She says she doesn't see infusions, but then it is a hit. It's the opposite. This does happen when you get hit sometimes. However, she then riffs off of this hit for almost the rest of the reading.
Told me, he goes like this. I said, so what about her? He says, tell her I go with her. I said, go with her to what? And then he brought up a conversation I had with my assistant. She goes to the doctor and she gets B12 shots. And I said, oh, she gets B12 shots. He goes, no. And he showed me a long line with fluid going into a vein. And I go, oh.
All right, so in the interest of time, I'm going to go over. I did watch the entire video and pick it apart. She goes into another story about herself. Now it's herself and her assistant. If I was your mentor, please don't talk about yourself this much, ever. Nobody cares how you get the info. Nobody wants you to tell them about the third yellow bird that you saw on a Saturday in March because it was your granddad's birthday. What they want is information about their loved one for themselves. All right, again, this was reading 356, Jen and Deb. She claims channeling. So this is what Amie claims that she does during this video. She claims that she channels to disassociate from feelings and emotions. Now, everyone works differently. I totally give grace for that, but that's the opposite of how most people channel or do mediumship. Also, mediumship and channeling, they've become mushed together. They used to be two different modalities, but they've become really mushed together. But if you're disassociating from your feelings and your emotions, that directly is contradictory to using your own database, because you are using your feelings and your emotions in order to talk to spirit.
Okay. And all the way. Why? Tell me. Ooh.
Okay, right there it gets a little bit confusing because she's being very performative. She stops a lot and says, "Tell me what? Something's coming in. Hold on. What?" It's very performative. It's very performative. It takes a lot of time, so that means it's filler. That means this 31-minute reading is really about a 5-minute reading, in all honesty. She then goes on to have what the sitter definitely seems to consider a hit, in that her daddy goes with her. It's a little bit confusing because there's two different sitters. However, we're just going to go over some of the other things. Once again, she keeps telling them how she's getting the info, and this fills time. So I tell my students, again, nobody cares how you got the info. She goes back to the daughter and mentions a grandma, but then she just leaves it hanging. She doesn't do anything with this information. She doesn't go anywhere with it. It's not even a hit if you're, and if that makes sense. She asks questions. Were you taking care of your mom? Is a bit of a hit with the aunt, who is like a mother, and then aunt asks if the aunt has crossed over. It was very vague info. She's asking questions. This is fishing for information. When you ask a question and you're not in there good, you haven't proven that you're talking to who you say you're talking to yet, then a question is fishing for information. All right, so she did, again, reference the health issues, but we don't know what she knew before this reading started. It sounded like a conversation that had already been going on. I don't know that because of where the video started. We also don't know what is out there on social media. A lot of people don't realize that social media is so accessible. If you make anything public, let's say you check in at a hospital, that is public information, especially when you do check-ins, because they make their information public. So Mary checked in at XYZ infusion center, chemotherapy center, dialysis center. These are very easy tidbits to grab a hold of. I'm not saying that's what she's doing. I'm saying that as a consumer, you need to be aware of what you have out there that's public. Again, she goes on to have a bit of a hit with military info, and then she riffs off of this again and goes into a personal story again. So depending on if these people have social media, every Labor Day, people tend to tag other people with their veteran. It would be really impossible. I don't have their last name, so I can't go look for them on social media. But I just want to make people aware that when you tag people, when you have Facebook, when you have Instagram, when you have any sort of information like that, it's going to be on the internet. All right, she seems to have another hit on a man named Bill being one of these women's partner. Again, I would love to know what the sitter's last name is so that I could go look at Spokio.com, because it literally lists who you live with. So Bill could easily just be listed as living with Jen or Deb in the household. I mean, Bill and a Jen or a Deb, he's going to be a partner to someone. And then once again, we go into dead air where she talks about herself again. All right, so at this point, we have a dog hit, but she doesn't describe the dogs. It's very vague. She doesn't give any evidence that she's actually talking to the dogs. And so she, I'm sure, considers this a hit. I personally would tell my students, describe the dog, give a shared memory, talk about a personality characteristic of the dog, maybe find the breed of the dog. If you're just saying that the dog showed up, there's not a lot of people who haven't had dogs in their lifetime. Then the medium goes on to ask about John, which is literally the most common name ever. And then she asks who John is, right? Who is John for these two people? And it turns out that it's Deb's ex. So here's something that this medium never does. She never tends to ask about validation. She'll run on and she'll say stuff, and then she doesn't stop and let the sitter validate the information. And she doesn't ask for validation. She doesn't say, do you understand this? Do you resonate with this? She goes back to the, what? Where? Oh, tell me. And I know I'm being a little facetious right there because it is so performative. And then we realized that it was the end of life for this John person, and the person who's talking about this person is Deb. And the medium is incredibly performative about how this guy like falls down or falls out or something like this. It was incredibly disrespectful, in my opinion, as a mentor. I would never want one of my students to talk about someone who had passed this way. It was very, she laughed about it. Well, she said she did disassociate from her emotions and her feelings. So then it turns out that John committed the big S, and then the medium brings up purgatory. Then the person that it applies to said this was 8 years ago, pre-COVID, and this information could easily be 100% online. And that might be why we're talking about a guy named John who doesn't have anything to do with the person who actually booked the reading. Okay? All right, so go ahead and go watch that video if you would like to. It's very performative. She then does more scribbling. She does more of the, who are you? Where are you? What do you want? You know, when you're looking to the sky. Very, very theatrical, if you will. She has more misses than she has hits. I'm going to leave that one there. She very much, this was a fishing one, and we're going to move into just snippets of session 409, which is talking about a breakup. She's running late again. I want to reiterate that all of this snippets that I use are from the Fair Use Act. I literally have more notes than snippets, and that these are for educational and entertainment purposes only. I'm not calling anyone fake. I'm not calling anyone real. I'm talking about what I would pay for in a reading, or if I was your mentor, what I would tell you as a student. So for the last reading, I would have paid negative amount of money. Somebody would have had to pay me to sit through that. All right, as we go into this next one, Amie is running late again. Once that becomes a pattern, everyone knows what that is. It's disrespect. There's enough secondhand embarrassment for the sitter that I'm going to use a very small snippets from this, but you can go watch it if she leaves it up, session 409, called The Breakup. The secondhand embarrassment that I got for the sitter, yes. So she doesn't even start giving information until 5 minutes and 11 seconds into the reading, when she gets a miss with a man who died. Then she gets a miss on the friends. Then she starts launching into more personal stories about herself. If you are 5 minutes into a reading before a sitter or a reader starts giving you information, which is why you came there, then I personally, I would be like, this is over. I need a refund. That literally, and then she gets a miss, and then she gets another miss, and then she starts telling me personal stories about herself. I'm going to need my money back. I want to be very clear also that mediums charge different prices, and those are obviously, right, you charge what you want to charge. People are willing to pay what they're willing to pay. But if I'm paying $700 to $800 for a reading, and we're 5 minutes into a reading, you've had 2 misses, and we get into personal stories, that's an immediate, I'm going to need a refund. Expedited readings is nothing more than her filling in her open spots on her calendar, in my opinion, allegedly. She then goes into this one. I don't even feel comfortable playing it, to be quite honestly. First she claims that there's a dead guy for the woman's boyfriend, and then now it's a friend that is going to have someone die quickly. She's literally talking to her sitter about one of the sitter's friends who's going to have someone die quickly. Most mediums won't touch death. I mean, they won't touch it. I mean, my goodness, the liability alone. Like, maybe if someone is already terminally ill and someone comes to you as a tarot reader or an energy reader, you might broach that subject, but to bring it up voluntarily and put that into the universe, and now, I don't know. Most mediums absolutely will not do this, and it's impossible to prove the future. And she's holding, okay, well, the microphone is quite performative, but that was a little petty of me to write down. Okay, goes into some weird semblance of what she's talking about. Let me give you a snippet so you get an idea.
Trippy. Oh my God, I love your session. Okay, so stay with me really quick. You already know how I do this. And your hair's gotten a lot longer. You know what I think it is? I'm just gonna let you know. I think something like that's going to happen. And then because we just mark my words, because you and I are talking about it right now, you may bring it up and you may show this person this conversation, which is odd. And then that is going to help them like realize that they're okay and they're fine. Like it's that type of weird, odd thing, kind of like how I had this deja vu during the middle of the session, like the last time. And just wait. Just email me when that happens. It's weird,
I
but
will.
it's definitely a male wear. Did does her, and she's actively married though, so it's not just kids, it's like a whole family. Okay. And weird.
And then
Did
I
they
have a
move to a
cousin who I talk to sometimes who lives in Tennessee, but
Tennessee. Yes, I was about to. Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
They're talking about the East Coast or like where the tree lines are, where Elvis lives. Your cousin in Tennessee. There's nothing going on with her dad though right now. Like he's still alive.
yeah, well, her stepdad, her actual father died before she was born.
Pause. Shut the front door. That's probably
All right, so I don't think I'm telling a lot of you how nonsensical and vague, none of that made any sense. And then she's fishing for information, she's having a conversation, she grabs onto the Tennessee as if this is somehow an elaborate hit for her, refers to Tennessee as the East Coast, which it's not. And I don't even know where Elvis was born, but was it even Tennessee? Elvis was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. This is where the secondhand embarrassment literally starts for this, and the whole reading goes on like this. Why are we talking about this person's friend's dad's husband, this completely vague stuff? When you go to a reading, you should expect to get your people. This is another thing that she says, and a lot of other mediums say, is they say they can't control who comes in. This is a very convenient way of hot reading. This is a very convenient way of cold reading. If you can't control who comes in, right? It's I literally teach how to go direct. Okay, so I'm not doing these videos in order to get more people in my classes. Actually, I'm doing it because the way I have it set up here is that I'm not criticizing as much as I'm trying to help. Amie the medium then goes into yet another personal story, totally riffing off the time. It takes the info from the sitter that the sitter gave her and it riffs. This takes credit for the info. The sitter is giving her the gives, the cousins, the emotions around pregnancy. This is a conversation. This is not a mediumship reading. It's just not. She then goes on, and I think it's incredibly irresponsible, so I'm not actually even going to play it. She then goes on to start reading into the cousin and then freaking out this girl about the cousin is pregnant with a baby, and that Amie's saying that she's giving this cousin medical advice that she needs to get off her feet. And then she starts going into some math thing to kill time. This, like she legitimately, like it matters. Like somehow it's going to make a difference in this reading when this woman's pregnancy is going to come to fruition. It isn't the cousin's reading. It's this woman who's sitting on the couch who so far hasn't gotten any information about herself or her loved ones. And we're talking about a cousin's baby, and then we're bringing fear into this about, oh, the cousin maybe needs to get off her feet. And then she legitimately starts doing math. Maybe I'll have to show you that part.
Hey, hold on. What happened? Where were you at? How did you get there? He's in a car. He must not have been on a motorcycle, which is good. He's talking about banging on the steering wheel and listening to music. And I go, okay, which means that maybe he... So was this like a head-on swipe, like coming from this way?
Maybe.
Okay, because he's talking about it coming out of nowhere. And he says that
All right, I couldn't find the part where she was counting, but if you go watch the whole video, if you care to. So then she starts riffing off of the dad's accident. Again, is there a car accident that's ever existed that didn't come out of nowhere? Right? So very vague, very subjective again. And then she also misses where she just described how it happened. It ends up being a miss. You'll notice when we first cut into there too, again with the performative, tell me what, this is very Hollywood.
As soon as he saw it, he's like out. So he passes very quickly.
All right, so go watch that because she gets that a little bit wrong. And then I don't know anyone that's been in a fatal car accident. There's no evidence here. There's no evidence in which the sitter is actually validating evidence. I ended up giving up on this reading because it was so painfully, I had secondhand embarrassment. I had embarrassment for the mediumship community. I kept thinking about how much this mediumship reading probably cost and how long she probably waited for it. She literally riffs off the car accident, about it coming out of nowhere, about him passing suddenly. I literally had to stop. We're 15 minutes in and she's had a half of a hit. A half of a hit. So if a mentor or anybody watching your video gives up due to secondhand embarrassment and just the complete awareness that this is not a reading, I can't imagine having waited months. I can't imagine being in grief. I can't imagine giving someone anywhere from $700 to $1,300 for a 1 hour reading and then getting this. And these are the ones that she posts as effective, brag-worthy sessions. So if I were going, I wouldn't pay for this. I would not pay for this reading. I would not claim this person as a student, which, by the way, I've never heard one time who mentored her or how she learned what she learned. She just consistently says that she was born a medium and she's been doing this. Apparently she fell out of the womb and gave the doctor a reading. That's not how it works. It's just not how it works. Like Mariah Carey saying, I've been a singer since I was born. She didn't fall out of the womb and then perform at the NFR halftime. She built up to it. Everyone has to be discerning. Everyone has to learn stuff. Somehow people in this area, in this niche, in this spiritual thing, they think it's some sort of a flex to say, I literally was born doing this. I want everyone to know that you can actually learn to do this. We're all born with the same skills. Now, just like anybody can play piano, it doesn't mean we'll turn into Mozart, but it does mean we can learn to do it to a certain extent. What we're good at may be different than the next person, but it doesn't mean we can't learn it. I did not know that when I first started into this area, and that's why I would have been very ripe for a scam artist. I'm not saying she's a scam artist. I'm saying I would have been ripe for a scam artist. I would have been ripe for an $800 to $1,300 reading, and I may have even thought, like this sitter did, that this was a good reading. And I'm here to tell you, as someone who has since spent 10 years learning mediumship, doing mediumship, critiquing mediumship, mentoring mediumship, writing about mediumship, this, in my opinion, is not a good reading. It isn't even a read. It's barely a conversation. So I give both of those readings a -5 out of 10. If you have any questions about that, if you want to critique me as the critiquer, by all means, feel free. When we put stuff out here, when we put our opinions out here, when we put our readings out here, we open ourselves up to criticism. We open ourselves up to hate, love, hate, like, it's all very subjective. And unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not special. So if you have a critique of my critique, by all means, leave it in the comments. Again, this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is a series called If I Was Your Mentor. I'm trying to educate the general public or mediums that are coming up what actually falls under a mediumship reading and what doesn't. Have a great day.